Welcome to Seylha, a word which means the mortal world or realm. It is a whole world of nations, cultures and languages to discover. This video is a broad overview and introduction to Atsüar, a language spoken in northeastern Adotse, which is a consonant of Seylha. The common ancestor proto-language of Atsüar and numerous other nearby languages first arrived on the continent around 600 years ago, when people speaking what was known as Milayu migrated from across the seas to the northeast, though the reason why has fallen out of memory. They slowly advanced inland, building kingdoms and pushing out the less populous peoples who lived there. Atsüar is the primary language of Atsüar, a large kingdom amongst the wealthiest, most populous and most powerful in all of Seylha, with a population around 15 million. The kingdom is fed by the great river Mechana, giving the Atsüar an extraordinarily fertile valley which feeds the great population centres. Away from the centre there are large wetlands to the north, mountains to the west, and forests, hills and grasslands throughout. Atsüar is a feudal kingdom. The Sojur rules from Chalovan, with vassal princes and lords dotted throughout the country. The backbone of daily life is structured around religion, in which the pantheon of 12 gods are worshipped, and whose priests in the great temples wield considerable power. Older community structures persevere at the edges. In the mountains, where the people predate the Great Migration, the most important identity is their clan and local chief, who is rarely the same as the feudal overlord. This is similar in the northern marshland, though structured in a different way. The key features of the phonology include no voicing distinction for most phonemes, a strong coronal series, and a lone fricative in the uvula range, which is a historic development from an alveolar trill and is noted as voiced to reflect this history. Other key phonological developments from the proto-language are the introduction of the lateral fricative and the full palatal series, the removal of the velar and bilabial fricatives, and numerous vowel developments including the emergence of phonemic front-rounded vowels, removal of a length distinction, and a wave of near-universal vowel lowering. The modern language syllable structure in non-final positions is maximally CVC, though the glide y may be either side of the vowel. Word finally, the stops and nasals only may geminate, resulting in a possible longer coda. All consonants are permitted at the end of words. In mid-word positions, all consonants may be codas only if they are geminated and repeat to begin the following syllable. If not, only l, ch, n, m and h may be codas. In addition, l, ch, n and m can appear as syllabic consonants at the end of words when unstressed. The second syllable of root words takes stress, and stress is maintained on the root when inflected with either prefixes or suffixes. Consonants are usually voiced intervocalically and where geminated word finally. The nasal n assimilates to the place of articulation and is thus velarized before k. The bilabial stop p sometimes lenites to the fricative f or v intervocalically and occasionally word initially. A is realised as a around back consonants, and the glottal fricative h may be realised as the glottal stop when preceding another consonant, even across word boundaries. There are upwards of 10 mutually intelligible dialects of Atsüar across Atsüar. The focus on this introduction is on the central dialect, which has the most speakers and influence, but we will briefly cover 4 differences between the central, marsh and eastern dialects. In the central dialect, vowels before a nasal consonant lower towards a, regardless of position or stress. This is in addition to the universal vowel lowering shared by the marsh dialect but not the eastern. The eastern dialect often reduces to a schwa or omits word initial unstressed V syllables, where the vowel was short in the protoform. In addition, the unstressed vowel U may be realised as U. The marsh dialect voices all consonants, and intervocalic lenition can apply to all stops, allowing free variation between the stop and the fricative. Other dialects only find this with the labial stop, which as discussed can be a fricative intervocalically and occasionally word initially. Finally, there are some small lexical differences, where one synonym may be favoured over another, varying between dialects. For example, see the words for canoe, hold and eagle. For each, 2 dialects agree, while the third goes in its own direction. 2 distinct writing systems have developed, both read top to bottom and left to right. They were created by the priestess Oamh, who was the great tortoise god of language and writing, amongst much else. The original and more sacred is an abugida, though it has some characteristics of an alphabet. Vowels require a consonant, but there is no inherent vowel, and the vowel forms are independent of the consonant glyphs. Though it is usually CV, it is sometimes VC or even VCV. The Atsüar call it Maor, an inherently plural word, originally for glyph or letter, and now more generally for writing in this system. This writing is now most commonly found as relief on gold, wood and rock, on jewellery or embroidered in clothing. However, it is still found as ink on older or more sacred scrolls, and even the newer scrolls in the newer writing system will begin and end in Maor. The second system is a more recent development, and is a full alphabet called Machid. It was originally designed again by the priestess Oamh, primarily as a means of writing more quickly, and again is non-standardised with both spelling and glyph variations between temples. Atsüar has a VSO word order, though topic fronting sometimes results in an OVS word order. In these instances, the topic particle cha follows the object. The proto-language was VOS, which is now only evidenced through copular-style constructions and some fossilised words and phrases, including names. For example, Nehokko, a name which literally means who fears nothing in the VOS order. Nominal phrases are at minimum a noun, a pronoun, numeral, or adjective. Where an adjective is in this slot alone, the noun place or pronoun one is implied. For example, tool could be translated as tool one. Nouns, adjectives and pronouns are inflected for case. Adjectives immediately follow the noun and agree in case. Next follows a determiner, almost exclusively the definite ne or indefinite sa. And then a clitic, which can mark for singular, dual or plural number. Inherently singular nouns would only take marking for dual or plural, and likewise inherently plural, countable nouns, such as the words for berry or fish, only take marking for single or dual. This number clitic will attach to whatever precedes it. This is usually the determiner, but where absent could be the adjective or the noun directly. Finally, there may be an intensifier, though these are rare. There are 5 cases in Atsüar. The ergative case is used primarily for the subject of a transitive verb, but is also used for intransitive verbs when deliberate. It marks volition. For example, to say the man jumped deliberately rather than the man fell, man would be in the ergative case. Where one consonant ends the root word, the l in the affix undergoes metaphysis to precede it. 3 examples of inflection are on screen now, for bear, god and prince. The absolutive case is the object of a transitive verb, and the experiencer of involuntary intransitive verbs. See for example the difference between the man jumped and the man fell. The verb is the same, but the case of the patient changes. Passive verbs are also denoted solely by the absolutive case. The genitive case marks alienable possession on the possessor, where inalienable possession is marked by the word of. See for example the difference between the warrior's spear and the dog's ear, where the inalienable ear is followed by of, and the dog is not genitive. The inflected form is coincidentally identical to the ergative case, though the 2 cases historically derive from different words. The locative case is used vaguely like in, on, at, to or by. Words in this case never have a definite or indefinite article. Though the affix is marked as sha, its form varies depending on the consonant ending the word. Finally, the dative case is used primarily as the indirect object of a verb, similar to, for or from in English. It is also used as the agent of a passive verb when required. Here you can see that changing just the subject from ergative to an absolutive patient reverses the meaning completely, from he gave water to her to he was given water by her. Here is another passive sentence, this time including a locative noun too. The wolf was killed by the hunter in the forest, where the hunter takes the dative case. Verbs in Atsüar are aorist or perfective when unmarked in their default form. They refer to simple actions in either the present or the past. There is no distinction between these tenses. For example, the woman runs and the woman ran would both be lam kolene, depending on context. Atsüar features serial verb constructions, in which verbs can be strung together with only the first in the series requiring the subject and object. Verbs take no subject agreement, but there are several slots where clitics can attach both before and after the verb root. This is largely concatenative, but does result in some inflection, particularly from the post-verbal slots. The leftmost slot is the negative clitic ka, which when used necessitates a negative particle following the object in the adverbial position. She didn't catch any fish is therefore kayoshe mo sa. The second slot is the Irrealis, where there are forms for the future and the subjunctive, and also the optative to express hope, the imperative to give orders, and finally the Jussive. This is mainly another way of giving commands, but in an indifferent manner, usually used by lords and nobles to commoners. Third is the Realis slot, for certainty, ability, obligative, and permissive or causative modals. For example, she can catch fish if she wants to attaches m to the verb to denote ability, whereas she is required to catch fish uses the obligative clitic hyo, reduced in this example to just ha. Hyo shea mosa. Next comes the verb, or the auxiliary verb when using the progressive or ingressive aspects. The verb is followed by the imperfective aspect. If progressive or ingressive, then instead everything prior attaches to an auxiliary verb, which indicates present or non-present actions. In this case, the verb follows the subject and object, but still takes the progressive or ingressive clitic as a suffix. For example, she is catching fish follows the subject and object with the word for catch and the progressive suffix, an. She might be catching fish attaches the subjunctive clitic to the present auxiliary verb, and again follows the subject and object for catch in the progressive. There are two other imperfective aspects, inchoative for sudden entrances to a state, and habitual. These do not use the auxiliary verbs. Finally, there is a non-imperfective slot, where the perfect aspect can attach at the very end of a word, where in our example, using it alone means she has or had caught some fish, as opposed to the simple she caught some fish when unmarked. These various clitics can be combined to indicate a number of subtle meanings. For example, though the ability modal alone demonstrates ability, it gives no indication of quality. It is a simple she can catch fish if she wants to. If the ability modal is combined with the subjunctive, the meaning is potential, more she could catch fish. Or instead, if the ability modal is combined with the habitual aspect, the meaning refers to a general known ability, and it does indicate that it's of a decent quality. The future Irrealis can combine with the perfect for future perfect. She will have caught some fish. To this one can add the certainty modal and the negative, to say for example, she definitely will not have caught any fish. Kashete yotsa e emosa There is much more grammar to cover, from questions to copulars to adverbs, derivatives, comparatives and conjunctions, irregular verbs, infinitives and plural actionality, and more. However, I hope you've enjoyed this introduction and that it gives a feel for how Atsüar looks and works. As the Atsüar might say, "Tse main."